Hi, my name is Sabrina Keller, and I'll be doing a book presentation on Charlotte's Web. Right there is a picture of the front cover of the book to give you guys a better view, and here is the actual book. I have it right here with me. So this book, for those of you who haven't read it, is a story of Wilbur the pig and his friends. Fern Arable, which is the little girl right here on the front cover, and the other Barnyard friends, and then most importantly, Charlotte the spider, right here, which is why it's called Charlotte's Web. So Wilbur was born the runt of the little pigs and was thought too weak to live by his father. As you can see in this picture, that Fern right here took pity on Wilbur, and when she heard that her dad was going to kill the pig because he was too young, she ran straight in, showing great innocence, and said, I will take care of this pig. Please do not hurt yourself. Called him selfish and all of these things. And her father said, it's a thing of life and death. And she's like, I don't care. Like, I want to take care of this pig, essentially. So Fern took pity on him and started raising him as her own, which is really sweet. So let me show you a picture of it real fast. So you can see here, in the book, you can see Fern taking care of little Wilbur, feeding a little baby bottle, just really showing the innocence, which I think the author was trying to portray. And as time goes on, Wilbur meets Charlotte, which is an important character and friend into this book. Right here you can see, here's Wilbur meeting Charlotte the pig. So as Wilbur grows up, Wilbur has a really nice lifestyle, eats all day, just sleeps, but there's a time where he becomes really lonely in his life because none of the other barn animals will play with him. And then one night he meets Charlotte, and Charlotte says, Wilbur, I will be your friend. And thus their story begins from that point on. I'd say it's quite a big escalation. Meeting, I'd say Charlotte was one of the initiatory points of the story. So anyways, going back to the book. So Charlotte's Web actually is won the John Newbery Medal. The John Newbery Medal, I said that right. And this book was actually originally published in 1952, so it's been over 60 years that it's been a classic literature book. The author is E.B. White, and the genre would be children's literature and traditional literature, and Garth Williams was the illustrator. So going back to traditional literature are stories that have passed down from generations to generations, are relatable to everyone. They can be either picture books or fantasy books, which I would say this book is primarily a novel, but it has a variety of pictures within the book, so it still can classify itself as traditional literature on that basis. And then traditional literature also focuses on learning from the lives and mistakes or blessings of others. So within this book, we learn a lot of great morals from Wilbur, Charlotte, the other animals, and little Fern here. And another point I found out was great is that traditional literature, typically these books are from ages and ages and pass from generation to generation. But as generation passes, the story slightly changes, as we know with, say, like Greek mythology, different books that we've been reading and will be presented to. Some of the stories change. So Charlotte's Web is definitely an original, but there are actually a lot of different takes on Charlotte's Web. There are movies, there are other renditions of Charlotte's Web, as let's see if I can show them. You can see here lots of different pictures of the illustrations. We can see different binds in which Charlotte's Web has been characterized. We see different pictures. We see an easy I can read. So there are many renditions of this book to make it easier to read. Not just books by itself, but also there have been movies and I think even plays. I saw a picture of a play for Charlotte's Web, which I have never heard of before. Anyways, fun fact, Charlotte's Web was actually banned in Kansas in 2006 because talking animals were blasphemous and unnatural. So a lot of the traditional literature books were actually banned at the time, believe it or not, but they still outlast the bans and they continue to be traditional books throughout time, I would say. mean, this book has lasted 60 years, and even with the ban, it's still a popular book for kids to read. Continuing on, I believe that this book is actually great because it helps children start to deal with the permanency of death, and typically around ages 8 to 10 years old is when, well, more the age of 10 is when children start to understand the permanency of death. So this book would more fit about grades 4 to 6. And I think that the size of this book too is appropriate. It's 192 pages, but because of the age group and because of the progression of death, well, not progression of death, but of understanding life and death within the book, I think it's appropriate age group and size because it really ties in everything together. Going back to, that's another funny picture. Going back to the actual story, so the story is a coming-of-age story, as both Wilbur and Fern grew up from both childhood to adulthood, as we can see here. So going with this picture, there was a time where the other barn animals told Wilbur that he was going to die one day because he was growing fat, and in the winter, this was summertime, in the winter he would be slaughtered from Fern's father because he's a pig, and at that time people eat pigs. They were fattening up quite well. Wilbur was devastated, absolutely devastated, which, here, let me show you in the book. But Wilbur was absolutely devastated by this news, cried, was so sad. By this time, he had already met Charlotte, which was amazing. So after having met Charlotte, so this is after she met Charlotte, you see Wilbur just crying his eyes out. Poor little piggy, because he was just so sad. Charlotte says, I will save your life. I will find out a way to have this happen. Which I thought was interesting because here's Wilbur crying his eyes out that he's going to die. But then Charlotte, the more mature maternal character, I guess you could say, comes and says, I will figure out a solution for you. So as we see here, Charlotte uses her webs to create messages that make Wilbur famous, and in the end actually keep Wilbur alive in the winter and not being killed by Fern's dad. So as the story continues on, we actually see that Wilbur lives, and as time goes on, Charlotte actually begins to die herself. And in this time, with the coming age of progression, maturity, and selflessness, Wilbur, when he realizes that Charlotte is going to die, is devastated and says, why did you do this for me? I don't deserve it. I've never done anything for you. And she says, well, it's because I was your friend and I made a promise to you. Great moral of the story. And in the end, instead of wallowing in self-pity, well, he did a little bit, Wilbur decides to act. And instead of letting Charlotte act for him to save his life and save his pain, he, with the help of a rat friend, goes and grabs the egg sac from that Charlotte recently created and saves all of her babies in a selfless act to repay Charlotte for saving his life. So I just think that's an amazing moral because it teaches children sacrifice, friendship, selflessness, and how Wilbur ends up saving Charlotte's babies as she saved his life as well. And I think that is amazing. So that is the end of my presentation. Hope you guys like this book and hope you guys end up reading it. It's a great classic literature. I love all the pictures, as I've shown you, wonderful illustrations, and it's amazing to see how it all ties together in the end. Thank you for watching and have a great day.